What does it feel like to watch this right now?
You know, I haven't watched this in a while. It stands so clear in my mind. The first time I experienced this artwork of perfection.
This was what
Yeah.
I read and gathered was this was the first art experience where you were really rocked to your core.
There was a small space run by this formidable woman, Yadessa Hendeles in Toronto, who at the time I knew nothing about, and I stumbled into the space based on some kind of art map with school, and I was emotional. I remember crying the first time. I went back at least a half dozen times, and it made me feel like pursuing something in the art world could really mean something. It was the very first artwork I ever remember feeling like this shit hits, and there are so many layers to it, and I'm not even sure. I mean, the first time I walked in, I didn't know who Srinashat was, and it'll be one of my opuses. I already had one. I thought Gordon Matta Clark and Popel is a show I did, and I'm like, oh, I can't top it. But working closely with this artist and something around this work would be like the next major emotional, insurmountable moment for me. You have to visualize this 2-channel video before I knew what 2-channel really meant. I don't want to pretend like I was encountering this work and I knew all of the ways to talk about it. I walked into the room. There were 2 screens. So like this window was a screen in the wall facing each other. So these performers are essentially facing each other and you're sitting in the center. It was a purple carpet, very well installed. The sound was, I come from a music background, so immediately I was like, the sound design was impeccable. Somebody really thought about 6 channels of sound and knew how to put the subwoofers in the right place to make me feel it when it hits that note. I was like crying for this woman and also feeling a little bit for the man. And
There's layers.
There's layers. It'll be a chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was huge for me.
This is also, it's such a different experience because I was watching this on my laptop and I was like, oh wow, this is crazy. And then hearing it here, I like the hair on the back of my neck stood
the
up.
sound, when you see it, like it was floor to ceiling, so it was larger than life, bodies belting in front of me. And I almost felt like I could feel the air out of the speakers. I was there alone also every time I went.
Wow. So this clocks as one of the formative experiences
100%.
in your sort of art upbringing. I'm going to fast forward a little bit to when you actually make it to New York. And is your first job in the art world with Foxy?
Mm-hmm.
So you intern at Foxy.
Intern at Foxy Production, yeah. Whenever I'm about to talk about Michael and John, Michael, Gillespie, John Thompson, I make it sound like we're really good friends, and I hope we are, but I haven't spoken to them, and we don't text and call each other. But they know how important they were and are to my story. Foxy Production was one I wrote to because of their program. I felt somebody who, at the moment when I applied, had worked in music. Mostly was my only full-time experience and writing about music. And they were really kind of like schmutzy and like unmastered is what I think I remember saying to John in my letter. Like it was like this underground basement party of a gallery where they were doing a lot of new media before many galleries. Maybe not, I don't know. To me,
No, they had
from
that,
my perspective,
they had that
right?
reputation, yeah.
And so I just wrote them a letter, and I was like, "Do you want me? I'd love to come and work for you for free." And they were like, "Cool, come on down." And I did, and it was life-changing. And I really expected it to be an internship where I go back and get a job in Toronto, and it turned into a job for them.
Right. Yeah, and that's when we met.
That's when we met.
So many years ago.
For a long time.
Yeah.
That was 2012, I think. 2011, 2012, something like that.
With people that are in the gallery world or in the commercial art world, my gallerist, for instance, Oliver, he worked for Alexander and Bonin. And he really credits them as being the ones who really gave him his grounding and like his understanding of what it meant to be a gallerist. Do you feel similarly? Like you worked at Foxy, then you worked at Mitchell Innes and Nash, then you worked at Martos. Of those three experiences, what has felt like the one that's grounded you the most?
Grounded me probably Martos.
Interesting.
And
okay.
Martos, Shoot the Lobster. I have to say both because I was tasked to program 3 galleries bi-coastally at the same time with
That's
a staff
insane.
of 1. And sometimes an intern or assistant. Eventually it grew, but it took years. Foxy, though, made me really appreciate what it means to learn everything about my job. They taught me how to make an invoice, what a pro forma was for shipping, what the difference between national and international crates are, how to hang an art fair booth. Registrars, production, art handling are my complete IV lifeblood. If my registrar is not happy and my art handlers, I'm the queen of like donuts, install morning, let's get some pizza. When it was Martos time, I'd do some beer after hours, but not at David Zwirner. Because, I had to figure out, I remember one story, this show at Martos, Invisible Man, and Pope L created a new work for me, and it was a fountain that hung upside down. And I'd hired an art handling and production company to help me build that plinth and figure out how to hang it safely and successfully from the beam. No shade in case anybody is associated with that experience, and much love to the crew, but they bailed before it was hung. They claimed, and to their credit, I think it was hard, but they just were not going to be responsible for it. So I had to figure out how to rent scaffolding, enlist somebody who I'm thankful is now a partner in all things in my life. At the time was just my art handler and production manager. And another friend who I knew was art handling for another gallery, and we were there until one night I slept there, just many nights, but for this show right before we opened. So I have so much love and appreciation, and people who say they come into 52 Walker and it feels like an installation, it's always new. I have to be involved.
Right.
I would never ask anybody installing a show for me to do it without my involvement. I'm really respectful and admire people who are willing to troubleshoot with me, and especially those who feel excited by it and not burdened by challenges, because some people do. Some people have an attitude of, it's not my job, this is not what I signed up for. But those who really get excited by problem solving and we're in it together, I will vacuum up the floor while you are mopping. We have to do it because then it just looks so good.
I think it's also, sometimes there's a fear that the curator will get in the way. And when you can actually fully collaborate, that is a beautiful thing. And it's something that I think artists would want more if they could trust it. And I'm wondering when you felt like artists started to trust you. Was this Martos? Was this Foxy? Because it was, I think you always had artists on your side. You were always friends with artists. You were always in the mix of things. But when did you feel I've earned this trust now?
I would say it happened early, but there's different levels of trust. I remember one time at Foxy Production, this wonderful artist who I now call a friend, Sasha Bronig, had her second exhibition there, and we needed the gallery needed to be painted.
Mm-hmm. You painted the gallery?
With Sasha.
You're kidding.
And we texted in the morning and was like, can you bring an extra shirt, painting clothes? I think it's important for curators, in my opinion. Not everyone needs to be of the same, fabric. I don't ever think what I'm saying, I have to preface what we continue with our conversation to say, I've never advocated for a kind of paradigm shift with 52 Walker. Of course, my practice is my own. Everybody is afforded the right to their own practice and opinions, but if you didn't make art, a lot of curators did. I didn't make art in the studio. I studied photography, but I only worked primarily as like commercial photographer.
Okay.
To really understand how the artist is working, I can't imagine asking someone to move a painting 1 inch on blocks on the floor for me.
Really?
I hate it. I actually save a lot of money with art handlers because I don't book anything until it's really time to hang.
Huh.
I move the blocks. I mean, unless they're really big and I need help, of course. But I mean, I feel weird, and they're always so generous.
Yeah.
You know, like art handlers are the blood of the industry. They don't feel weird hanging back and waiting for me to take 10 minutes to look at a wall. But I feel intrusive and disrespectful of their time, just having them be around. So I do a lot of my installing after hours. I do a lot of facsimile printouts, even like just 8 by 10, and tape them together to move things that are not worth $10,000 or $1 million, and just like move the paper. There's something about feeling like I'm connecting with what I'm hanging that feels important.
Oh yeah, I feel like when I am hanging a show, it's like I'll move something and then I'll walk out of the gallery and I'll walk in, and then I'll move something again and I'll walk out of the gallery and I'll walk in. And I just keep doing that over and over again, because it's like, all right, what is the choreography of this emotional experience? And like testing it as many times as you can to see, does it hold? Does it do the things that I thought in my head? And trying to separate yourself from what was happening in the studio or what was happening in a different moment in time to what's happening in this space right now. You've had so much experience like putting together shows. This signaled to me what Ebony was going to be about. This is the artist Peter Williams. I think we both agree, maybe a underappreciated artist.
100%.
And I didn't know that many people talking about Peter Williams. I don't remember if you were the one who told me about him, or like there was some moment when I was looking at this work and I was like, holy shit, this guy is incredible. And here you were doing a show of the work and making sure that he was taken care of, and you know, he had his share of health issues and you know, required some real care. And it felt like this was a moment where you really got to showcase an artist and like show people a world that they hadn't seen before, which I think we'll start to see more and more. And then 52 Walker happens. The
show is heartwarming for me on so many levels, but one, this is just going to be like an ode to Foxy production, but you know, Michael and John, to their credit, it was an artist who had been presented to them and in front of me, and we were kind of just, I was very privileged to be the only employee with the owners of the gallery who really heard me. They really listened to my opinions about the work. We had engaging conversations about the work, and they said, why don't you go to Delaware and meet with Peter? You know, this was like 1 year out of grad school. I mean, I'm sure there are many good bosses out there, but for these gentlemen that's
special.
Put me on a train, not a plane, but put me on a train, it was more than just a studio visit. It was an invitation to not just a show, but representation. And there were no titles at Foxy Production, you know, by any measure. I was a gallery assistant, but I was also their registrar and art handler, and you know, did the fairs with them. And this was my real first experience with an artist, bringing in an archive that was on slides in binders, and really bonding with Peter and helping with his New York show.
Martos, I feel like, was when you planted a couple of flags, like Invisible Man being the first, where you could start to make a stake curatorially. And then how do you create a relationship with a gallerist specifically like a white gallerist, where you're like, this is what I want to do, these are the shows that I want to do, and like get the support that you need? Because I've proposed shows that didn't happen because there wasn't the support that I needed, but you pulled these things off and like made it work.
For better or worse, I was unaware of what anyone else thought. I say that to mean I probably should have taken note a little more, and I try to learn from that now. I knew that this show had to happen. Many questions were put to me as to its financial viability and production and installation. Mm-hmm. I didn't have answers, but I didn't care. And nothing, it wasn't all peachy. You know, I got in trouble a lot, not just with Jose. I mean, not in trouble, but I mean, I had to have many private conversations with people I worked with and worked for. Here's an example. Here in this picture. This couch, Kaede Ojo. I was such a believer in this complete installation. I bought this couch myself on 2 credit cards. It was only $600, which makes you understand what my credit card situation was like. And I had to resell it on Craigslist at the end, because for Kaede and I, the belief in this work and the conversation in the show was so much more important than me to think. So, like, I don't think 10 steps ahead. Maybe I just thought 2 steps ahead. And so the blindness of that was rewarding for me as a curator. You know,
right.
How are we going to get those Jessica Vaughns up? Let's figure out how to do this large format printing for the seats. And I'll, you know, there was no Patreon then, but I mean, I did some sort of crowdfunding.
But then I guess my question is, like, how did you maintain this steadiness and not just burn out after doing a show like this? How do you not just crash and be like, fuck it, I'm never doing a show like that again?
I mean, it's so fun. Look at it. Like, I mean, look at this. This floor, for context, I went to Red Hook a year before the show even opened to look at flooring that is
like laminates or
reclaimed.
Oh,
reclaimed
okay.
oak. It was pretty expensive. And the first show I do, I tell Jose, my boss, hey, I love this floor. I'm going to drill a hole through it that will leave a mark for the life of the gallery. And it's still there. If you go in, you see. I kept the piece, but the line marks this hole.
Oh, this is like your own little Gordon Matta Clark.
It is. You know, I mean, art, it's so fun. You know, if you're not having fun in even the challenges, I think when I stop having fun in the challenges of each show, maybe my career will change. But I love working with artists. I love the conversations. I really have a good time.
Yeah.
You know, I never have felt, I'm not like begrudgingly approaching an install because I have to stay till midnight. Mm-hmm. You know, for me, it's more like, what's for dinner at the gallery? Mm-hmm. Let's go, guys. Maybe when that changes, it'll feel different, but, I don't know. I didn't know what people would think. I didn't know if it would be successful. I didn't even know what that meant. I was excited for people to come in and see it. This fountain, Popel was like, fuck you. You're going to have to get on a ladder twice a day. First, fill it with newly filtered water. At the end of the day, drain it. Every single day, reset the timer. And I mean, this was for 8 weeks. Like that's a lot of draining and filling. And I would just laugh every time and send him texts. And be like, you motherfucker, you're so, fuck you. I love you, but this is crazy. You know, like I don't know. It's fun. That's the answer. Yeah, there's joy for sure.
I feel like there's a moment in museums and art culture at large after George Floyd where everybody's scrambling to figure out how they can address what to them seems like this explosion of a crisis where it's just been sort of there all the time and no one's been looking at it. So I think a lot of Black creatives, a lot of Black artists, a lot of, you know, anybody in the field was trying to figure out how to not fucking quit and like how to keep moving forward. And that was like right when you left Martos. Like it was kind of like the in-between period, right?
Yeah, it was in between. By default, we were quarantined. I mean, I can say a lot. I, like many non-white bodies in the art world, I felt very angry. I felt sort of like this new moment of realization sociopolitically, where some people are like, oh, my neighbor's racist. It's like, yeah, we knew that, All of these things were just bubbling to the top, and then having to deal with what I've always felt and then what became more apparent to others and making them feel comfortable. And I reached a tipping point with this online programming, for those who remember the quarantine, of, online viewing rooms and experience in 3D and QR code this, and here's a talk virtually. That was my first and only time so far where I was really and literally almost out the door of the art world. Mm-hmm. I was really ready to go for my 7th life, and I was like, this is it for me. I can't do it anymore.
Is that before David?
Concurrent. It was really concurrent.
Oh, wow.
It was very, here comes my shout out to a friend in the room who gets a chapter in my memoir. It's about the people who are there at the right time. I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Mark, while we were quarantined, and I remember just spewing my guts of frustration, or just like, I just want to like do cool shit and make somebody realize that it's cool and pay me to do it. And I know it's going to be good, and don't question me with your budget meetings and your bullshit, and just want to fucking do it.
You sound like an artist.
I maybe I feel like an artist sometimes,
It's your practice.
It is it does feel like I want to create.
Yeah.
I'm a little more of like, I want to produce for my artists. Mm-hmm. And Mark said, what does that look like to you? And I was like, in this moment, like, I don't know, fucking advising for Kanye, It was mostly really this moment of like one person, not just Mark, but like a few people very close to me, hearing me spew this confession of, I have imposter syndrome, but maybe a little less in this moment when all these idiots around me are doing some bullshit posturing, and I really want to do something that means something, and can we just get someone to pay for it? Mm-hmm. And then a few people encouraged it, whether they had the answer or not. It didn't feel...
They didn't slam the door.
They didn't slam the door. And it was concurrent with David Zwirner because before COVID is when I was approached by the gallery.
Oh.
But I was approached to work for them in a much more traditional way as a director, right, which is what happens in the gallery world. There's this kind of unspoken rule of like 3 to 4 year life at any gallery, and then you get poached, which is a problematic word, but I use it anyway. Or you have conversations of lifting or expanding your career. And at the time when I had my first conversation with somebody from Zwirner Gallery, I thought I couldn't do I felt like a small fish. Mm-hmm. And was kind of afraid, to be honest, about working with big fish. So I had the conversation to attempt to be professional and leverage myself as a businesswoman to go back to Martos and be like, make me a partner. Big fish want me. I don't know what it was. Look at me. I sound like I don't even know how to say it. Oh, I'm a small fish, and I don't even know how. I don't know how it would have actually.
You were leveraging.
I was trying. I thought I would, but I didn't have to. Because of the way things played out. My second interview or what was to be kind of a meeting with Zwirner Minds, was the week they announced quarantine.
Oh.
And I got a text from somebody who is now a colleague who I really appreciate. She's really and truly the backbone to a lot of how 52 Walker came to be, really. And there was a very casual text like, oh, as we all felt, when this thing, COVID and quarantine blows over, remember there were like newscasts about Clorox and wiping down your groceries?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this can't, it was the week I was supposed to go in. And I was like, yeah, let's just see how it plays out. Months go by.
Wow.
Silence. I'm spiraling. I want to buy a container and put it on a small piece of land. Like I was feeling very fiery in a way that I wanted other people to feel heard and seen. And then it was like, oh, people are actually back at work and doing business. And so it was almost like the interview that was meant to happen in February, or the second week of March, was happening 6 months later.
Wow. Like, did you have a vision of 52 Walker in that second interview? Or was it something that was kind of iterated with them?
I had a vision largely through conversations throughout pandemic that really solidified what my experience at Martos and Shoot the Lobster had affirmed for me in a way that I loved working. Mm-hmm. Shoot the Lobster, for background for those, was like a sort of project space of Martos. It was for sale, but artists we didn't represent. I was the art handler, director, curator, programmer for New York and Los Angeles. I would install it after hours. I'd leave Martos and walk over to Shoot the Lobster.
It was, at that moment, it was like you were a restaurateur that opened their second restaurant and you were just scrambling between both.
Just
like
all the time. I wanted to live in Chinatown because I spent every moment there.
Yeah, I believe it.
But there was something that happened for me as a curator that I could see the benefits of both worlds in that relationship, where Shoot the Lobster felt free for artists with me. It was like, no one's paying attention. Let's cut this ceiling open and break the pipe and nobody cares, and let's flood. Let's put a video out on the street and it's like Eldridge Street and nobody pays attention, but we tried it. We tried it out, and sometimes it worked, most of the time. And then I had Martos, where we represented artists and we did art fairs and a program that was representative of José and the history of the gallery with new artists that I was there to bring on. And so that's where, it was 4.5 years, and the melding of both of those minds started forming 52 Walker.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, if I could do Shoot the Lobster bigger.
Right.
But I didn't go into the interview. I didn't plan. I had nothing planned.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because, when you look at 52 Walker now, it looks very planned. There's a vision of the catalogs. The catalogs, it seems like they are inspired by many different things, from Cy Twombly drawing catalogs to Octavia Butler to magazine culture. And I think the magazine culture is actually one of my favorite things about it, like the editorial note, because it reminded me of how I think about introductions. It's an editor's note. It's like something that is about changing how we can be hospitable in art spaces, and like, what voice do we use? Is it a voice where we're looking down like this, or is it a voice where we're like this and where we're like this, and we can talk to each other as if we're all just like horizontal?
Totally.
And that feels like there's an ethic about rigor but empathy with 52 Walker. And so, did you know that you wanted catalogs? Did you know that you wanted like all of it to look this way? Did you have a sense of the first artists? And then, kind of importantly, like the way that you were thinking about risk and safety, because this is commercial at a much larger scale. And you already said, like, feeling like a little fish next to big fish, this is one of the biggest fucking fishes there is. So like, how do you make that transformation? How do you meet that and say, all right, let me do my shit?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to, I really am trying to be I'm always going to be honest and transparent. I really don't know. I think, you know, when I pitched 52 Walker, I don't encourage anyone to wait to this moment of like fight or flight. But I truly felt like I had nothing to lose, which made me probably seem more confident than I am. Because if everyone said no, I had a container plan. You know, really, I studied art criticism. It was an art criticism and curatorial practice program. My through line from the beginning was criticism. I wanted to write. I wanted to be critically engaged with practice and the canon and publish. I wasn't studying exhibition design in a way that maybe I would now. So I just kind of was like, this is what I want to do. And if nobody wants to, I don't know. I'm really good at growing cucumbers. I would hope that I could encourage anybody who feels any sort of inspiration, not that I hope to inspire, but not to wait for this dire moment. You know, I don't know if I could have pitched 52 Walker otherwise, though, to be honest. Like, I was in front of David Zwirner. I didn't have my next interview with a partner or director. It was David Zwirner and Ebony L. Haynes in a room.
How was that?
Really, really comfortable, actually. He was, we talked amicably and professionally about me coming in as a director. And I just felt like he was, I don't know, I'd never met him before either, full disclosure. And I was just riding a vibe. That sounds so unplanned. But he just, you know, sometimes you feel people are listening. Or you could really have a conversation with somebody and it's like reciprocal. And I just sort of said, I was like, I have this idea. It's real. That's what I said. I have this idea.
Wow.
And the things that you've done during COVID and like rethinking models and how to offer different kinds of support. Here's my idea.
Okay, this is almost like an out-of-body experience. So, because you're saying things that are very matter-of-fact, and I want to give commentary to the matter-of-factness. Do I have consent to do that?
Yes, I will share as much as I feel comfortable living online.
I think there's a lot of situations where people walk into, you'll walk into a situation and you might have preconceived ideas. You might come in with frustrations, angers, structural inequities that you're like, this is my fucking moment to speak truth to power. And as much as I think that's like, I'm trying to decide whether that's the angel or the devil on your shoulder. Because I think what Ebony did in that moment is that she met the situation in full presence, staying completely present in that situation to say the thing that was on her heart and just seeing where it lands. And I think that's when people pick up what you put down, because there's no animosity. It's simply stated, these are the things that are happening. These are the things that are happening in the world. This is the thing that I want to do, and I think it could change things. And it doesn't put that other person on the defense to say, well, I need to defend myself in A, B, and C ways, which in so many other contexts, maybe he should. But that's not the context in which you're going to get something done. And it's not the context in which you can grow something that you've grown. And that's, to me, that's like the seeing the zen of that moment, I think is really important and like a great lesson, because it's not easy to do. It's not easy to maintain your presentness in thought and mind and spirit when you're confronted with somebody that represents a lot of things, more so than just them as the person. And when a person gets seen in that way, their defenses go down, and you might be able to accomplish something different, which you've clearly done.
That is too generous. I mean, it's so heartwarming for me to hear. Maybe I'll feel that is less generous. I'm not trying to dismiss what you said. It really feels generous. So maybe that is how it is landed outside of my experience.
I'm just trying to see it, because like in my head, it's like, it's coming from an honest place. I'm not trying to gas you.
I believe you. That's why I'm really taken aback by it. It does feel, it makes me feel joy to hear that. And
to flip it, I think it also means that you're okay in those moments of like pushing those other concerns away momentarily, because even if you're not thinking of it as like the long-term vision, like even if that's not the goal, like in your head, okay, I'm doing this because I want this in like this many years. There is a presentness of mind to say, I'm going to get this done. And this is how it can happen. Otherwise it doesn't happen. And I'm just going to move on and I'll do something else and I'll live live number 7. But like, that's still like, there's a lot of complications and a lot of interesting things that happen there. And I think for people trying to navigate this incredibly treacherous terrain, it's good to hear shit like this. Because you also have a program that's not easy either, you know? Like,
yeah.
From Nikita Gill, who's up on the screen right now, to Nora Tirado, to who is after that?
After Nora was Tiana.
Fucking Tiana.
Tiana McClellan. And then it was Tao. Then it was Gordon Manaclark and Popel.
That run of Nikita, Nora, and Tiana, you can't tell me that those are 3 shows about ruin, destruction, and failure. About the systems that have not served large swaths of the community, specifically people of color, specifically black people, and that these systems have failed, they're fucked, they need to be torn down, burned, or they're already in ruin. How do you find a way to talk to collectors that have benefited, continue to benefit from the maintenance of those systems?
Yikes. That is for a different talk, my friend. That is a deep talk. And if anyone wants more tea on that answer, I'll give you a little answer.
Give us PG-13.
PG-13 answer is...
give us 2025 PG-13, which is like R from 1990.
I'll give you NWA. No. In Ajay's intro to me, you mentioned eating shit, which is an analogy I personally use all the time. Yikes. That is for a different talk, my friend. That is a deep talk. And if anyone wants more tea on that answer, I'll give you a little answer.
Give us PG-13.
PG-13 answer is...
give us 2025 PG-13, which is like R from 1990.
I'll give you NWA. No. In Ajay's intro to me, you mentioned eating shit, which is an analogy I personally use all the time because I had to early on find power in eating shit. And I say early on, as early as grad school. I was the only black student in a cohort of 12. There were no black professors. I had to get 2 external black professors, and I had to do the only one to do an extra semester. It just felt arduous and systemic in its bureaucracy. And realizing I could come out of that with something like Foxy production and opportunity and then more opportunity. And there's always shit as a non-white man you have to eat. And if you can work your muscle, no disrespect to the white men in the room, by the way.
It's okay.
You know, I have to say it because they're near and dear to my heart.
I have plenty of white friends.
But
they can hear this.
Yeah, they can hear it because we're talking about the general category, right? The general label. If you are not in that group, and probably what feels more powerful to me than any space I open or program or show I curate, if you don't feel like shit when you go home because of the amount of shit you've been given, you're a fucking champ. For real. You're a champ, and don't think that you have lowered yourself to anyone's expectations or lack of expectation. It's like your petty, it's your petty funny bone. I'll be like, okay, I see you, collector from 8 years ago, who's coming in the gallery, who doesn't remember what you said to me or how you spoke about me in French, because I'm fluent in French. Ooh. And we were in Brussels, and I had to storm out of the booth out of anger. I see you. Being respectful is fuel for me. It makes me feel a small amount of authority or power. Power doesn't come from me in this space or these shows. These shows for me are only powerful because of my artists. And for those, not everybody, some of my staff who are wonderful, they'll be like, oh, I went to this bar and I was wearing, I gift them 52W merch every Christmas. Like, I was wearing my t-shirt and I was like, oh, you work there? That's so cool. And I was like, girl, nobody said that shit to you. You are totally clowning. She's like, no, I did. I was like, I was out at Art Basel and get introduced as Ebony, a 52 walker. I was like, oh, what's that? I mean, there's two sides of the coin. Really? That happens to this day. And I don't care. I embrace it all. Like that is power and whatever. It's just part of the journey of the space. Power is that I'm still here. I'm smiling. Shit tastes like cheesecake. I'm telling you, this is the one lesson you should all take away. Nobody can feed you shit unless you feel like it's shit. You take it, you bring it home. Don't get depressed, because depression is our kryptonite. Like, fuck depression. You are just as powerful as anyone else. And if you could just wait 10 to 15 years, you will show them that it tastes like cheesecake. Just give it time. Be kind to yourself. The world was not kind to me. The art world was not kind. And, but I didn't care, That's
the part that's so fascinating to me, that you didn't care. Like,
I think I'm just too stupid to have acknowledged it, to be honest.
Yeah, no, of course, everybody believes that you're too stupid. That's...
No, not stupid, but oblivious. Like, I really... not on purpose, but I think...
is this because you're Canadian?
Maybe. I don't listen to... I won't listen to this again. Not because it's not wonderful.
I don't take it personally.
I have a podcast. I've never re-listened to an episode. I don't reread interviews that I give. It's sort of like fight or flight always. Like, I let it go, and there it goes.
Yeah,
you could hate it. You could love it. I both reactions are great. I'm already thinking about September 2027.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
It's okay. It's all okay. I love criticism of what I do. And accolade. Like, it's all fine. I don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm Canadian. It's because I didn't study art history. That's why.
So I'm going to end with what the future holds, because I think in a way even if you say you're only planning a couple steps ahead, it somehow seems bigger than that. And so you've just been appointed as
it's a mouthful.
Yeah, global. You're gonna make me try to say it.
GHCP.
GHCP.
It's Global Head of Curatorial Programs.
Okay. What does that look like? Do you have a sense of what that looks like?
Yeah, feel very present and purposeful in what I've achieved, but I do have to give, maybe not credit, but acknowledge the forces around me, like Foxy Production, like Lucy Michelinis, who taught me all about secondary market and took me to my first auction and allowed me to work with Popel, and like Jose Martos, who trusted me. I feel really fortunate to have people in my life who I've worked for and with, where I've never felt stepped on. My current job is no different. I felt the ability to pitch something to David Zwirner the first time, and I felt supported in ideating this new potential of what the role could be. I think...
So this is something, again, that you brought to them.
This is something to full disclosure, it was definitely co-cooked.
Okay.
It was really like, I think without knowing we were cooking something.
It's just started.
It just felt like I needed a change and I wasn't sure why or what. And David was trying to suggest a change and he wasn't sure. And it was a long time. This wasn't like 1 week.
Yeah.
And I feel lucky to have support and dissonance. Like if you have somebody who tells you you're the shit all the time, it's your demise. Somebody who questions my intent, like my proposal or my show, or makes me try to fight for something and I make them fight for their opinion too. Like, it's been really generous in my experience. I feel really lucky.
Especially when it comes from a place of care.
Yeah.
Like, no one's trying to fuck you.
No one's trying to fuck me, and it's care on both sides, really. Like, I don't know. I want to figure out what growth means for me and the program. And I'm not sure if growth means being in the same space for another 5 years, if I'm being totally honest. And that's kind of exciting. As somebody who loves exhibition design and curating, like, I don't know, we have to keep moving. We have to figure out what it means to challenge. Like an artist, I do think curatorial practice is truly a practice. For me, I need to practice a bit more. What does it mean to do a show in Hong Kong? I don't know, but I could know soon. That's new, cool. Like, I don't know what it will bring really, but I'm excited for a new, like, muscle.
I think even in the moments when you were like, I don't know how to answer that, the way that you go about it, I think is so revealing about the state of mind that it took to keep doing these things and how you're going to keep doing even more. And I'm excited to see it. Well,
I love you. And I wasn't going to say this, but Ajay had a show that was as inspiring for me, which I've mentioned also in interviews, but he didn't reference his show at 47 Canal in like 2013. I was like, who is this artist who's making these motherfuckers build walls and put tanks inside with new wiring? I went there like 6 times, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you live here and there's lots of shows, it's a lot.
That's a lot. That's more than I saw my show.
It was so good. So, I mean, talking about pushing things and stretching yourself and what you're comfortable with is just, you know.
I really appreciate that. Thank
Remember
you.
that show?
Thank you.
Top 10 New York show. It's true. He didn't pay me to say it.
Yeah, I'm gonna. That's the end of this.
It's in print. It was interviewed. Yeah. Thank you.
No, thank you. Everybody, a round of applause for Ebony Haynes.